And then he said, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills.
I can't catch a break, guys.
Yeah.
Get them the fuck away from me. I can't be around those guys.
People think, oh, well, cleaning your room, that's just a cliche. It's like, yeah, really, eh? Just go ahead and try it.
If people had any idea how powerful sleep is for healing from anything, and the fact that it's free.
My mind is absolutely bulletproof, solid as a rock.
Podcast. Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm joined with my co-host, Chris. Chris is joined with his co-host, me. How are you, Chris?
I'm good.
Good. Welcome back to another week on the podcast.
Yes, it's good to be back.
I actually genuinely love the podcast. It's one of my favorite days of the week. What a good opportunity to just get to sit down and have a wee chat. Part of your job. I love it.
It's pretty cool.
So, this week we're going to be covering the foundations and all that kind of crack. You've done the foundations, obviously, when we first started off ages ago. What was your kind of first insight when you first tested on the level method?
That I wasn't as fit as I thought I was. I was pretty cardiovascularly fit, but fit has a lot of different dimensions to it, and there was a lot of dimensions that I didn't have or that I wasn't very good at the start, and it highlighted those, and it gave me basically a target or the next step to do better in it, and help me progress as an athlete.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that happened when I seen that board is I strolled right on over to the black, and I quickly and briefly and shamefully walked my way back like the orange and the blue. Yeah. And it's quite humbling. That's one thing that's definitely interesting about it, is that, especially for me, maybe if you're a fucking professional athlete and you're listening to this, maybe you think you can do better, which is fair enough, all the credit to you. But for the most part, people who are just regular gym goers are going to find that this has everything you need and more in terms of progression. Like, I mean, for example, we've got a couple of clients who perform very, very well across one specific area, running, for example, and maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 people have maxed out the running. I think we maybe
what is the max on running?
Like what is it there? The mile in 3 minutes. No, is it? What we got running way down here.
5 minutes and 30 seconds.
5 minutes, 30-second mile, which is absolutely sensational. So we have about 4 people do that. Maybe we have 3 people max out the deadlift. And apart from that, I mean, it's ridiculously hard to get red. The red is the red elite competitor. So obviously, if you're a CrossFit athlete and you're wanting to kind of see if you're ready for competition, the level method dictates that you would be ready, or at least performing very, very well. If you have majority red, black is absolutely sensational. But one of the things that we want to talk about today is white, yellow, orange, and even this bad boy here, which is the spectrum of health. All right. And so what this is essentially is like, you know, where should the lay person be? Where should your average person who wants to be fit, healthy, look good, feel good, plenty of energy, you know, give themselves the best chance at life,
but not have fitness take over your whole life as well.
Exactly, yeah. Now, and also, if you want a bit of that, that's there too. Veering up towards the purple and the brown, it's going to be very hard to get purple and brown without fitness taking over your life, at least seasonally. Yeah. And obviously then we're kind of veering down towards orange, end of orange and blue. And so, if you're blue or purple, you're pretty much ideal in terms of the spectrum of health, looking like healthy blood pressure, your body fat's in a good percentage, and you have a stronger immunity. And then obviously if we look down towards the whites and the yellows, remember, if you're white and you're yellow, no judgment, especially coming from yourself. It's okay to start where you're starting. What's not okay is that if you start there and you're struggling to get there over time, and then you just quit. Obviously, that's when you really lose. This fly loves us. He wants to get fit. He wants to do the foundations. And so this is the big thing, is like that if you have metrics, all right, things that are measurable and they're leading you towards sickness, higher body fat percentage, and lower immunity, then that's less than ideal. And even if we start moving up towards the blacks and the red, that might even be moving out of the optimal health spectrum, because sometimes professional athletes have to do things that aren't necessarily healthy, like absolutely flogging themselves in terms of training, because the performance demands are that high. Sometimes, you know, high performance athletes, when they're ready to peak, can be very, very vulnerable in terms of their immune system, because their body is literally living on the edge. Would you agree?
I would say it depends. I think you might be thinking a little bit more like cutting weight for a fight or something like that, where things start getting a little bit crazy in terms of detrimental for your health. I think when you do start going into the elite categories, you start putting yourself under a lot of stress. And I think not being able to manage that stress would put you at risk of injury or sickness or whatever. But if you manage your stress well, like the body is incredibly like adaptable.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
So I would say, but in terms of one of the cool things about this, like moving from sickness to wellness, and that's what it says right here, moving from sickness to wellness. See if you are a white class. Like if you come in here and you have white in, let's say, your front squat, which is a 8 kg kettlebell, or sorry, a 12 kg kettlebell for lads, 8 kg for ladies. You have to squat to a 20-inch box. That's basically you hold the kettlebell, you sit down, and you stand up. If that's the limit of your ability, so obviously that's not wellness. So you need to be able to do a little bit more than that, and so your life is going to be pretty restrictive living like that. But what this does is it teaches you the next step to get out of that zone, which is pretty cool. And it's the same with all the other ones. Like if your lactic tolerance is bad, your deadlift is bad, you're way more risk of injury, way more risk of getting hurt. And if you go from white all the way up to blue or purple, you'll be a far more robust individual.
100%. And one of the things I love about the level method as well is that it opens up an opportunity for a broader conversation. It's like, right, okay, well, you can't get your front squat. Well, why? It's like, you're not strong enough. Yes, fair enough. That's one thing. One, you can't hold the bar. So why can't you not hold the bar? Well, you can't hold the bar because your mobility, and so now we have to start having a conversation about your T-spine and about your office posture, about the fact that your lats really work and that your chest is overly tightened. So even though we're just looking at the front squat is going to open a broader conversation. We start having a look at push-ups. Okay, so obviously we want to get good at push-ups. Well, now we need to probably have a conversation about nutrition. It's like, are you hitting your protein requirements? Are you too heavy? What in terms of a relative strength test, which means your weight to strength ratio is like, well, what's out of whack? Are you just really weak? In which case we want to focus on building muscle, or are you fairly strong and you just have far too much weight hanging on, or both? And so so then we need to have a deeper conversation, and if progressing on and moving towards a spectrum, moving towards wellness and moving away from sickness is really important to you. It's like, well, then this is a good marker, as we said, anywhere from orange to purple would be absolutely fantastic, ideally blue. And so if that's where you want to get, it's like, well, we're going to have to start taking our nutrition seriously.
And train.
Well,
and sleep and recover.
I generally, at this stage of the game, take training as a granted for most fighting fit clients. But if you're listening to this and you're not a fighting fit client, most to 95% of fighting fit clients are working out regularly, which is fantastic. It speaks volumes about the program and the coaching and how enjoyable it is, and even just the commitment that we get out of the fighting fit clients. Credit to them. It's like, that's amazing. Most people who come here train 3 to 5 times a week, which is absolutely insane.
Some train more.
Some train more. So yeah, that's it. And to get to a point where you're doing that really, really regularly is really massively impressive in terms of like building that habit and getting to that place in your life where exercise is just something what you do. I got a comment from one of the clients there the other day. He was saying, that his kids always comment like, "Oh, Daddy, you going to exercise today?" And it's like, that's really cool. It's like his kids associate him, as somebody who exercises, somebody who looks after their body. So he has that identity now in his kids' eyes, which is awesome.
You look up to him for it as well.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
My daddy's the strongest man on the whole entire planet.
That's funny.
And like, something I noticed as well about like Mason and wee Molly is they're always squatting. Like Mason always sees me squat. He always sees me do push-ups, and so he just
wants to do it as well.
He just thinks that it's normal. And that's really, really cool. That's something that I really like. And so obviously again, well, what is the level method? Well, what is it?
What is the level method? It's a way to assess where you're at. It identifies weaknesses, and then it helps you progress and eliminate those weaknesses systematically. Like the coolest thing about it. Here's how it's systemized, because you go up to a certain point. Let's say you get to orange. You can get to orange and still have 2 yellows, but until you address those 2 yellows, you cannot progress any further, and it forces you to work on your weaknesses. Like, you can still progress in the other areas, but you're not going to get another band. You're not going to level up, and you'll still be an orange athlete. And those things will limit you. So you do one workout. One of the workouts that we have here will basically, all the workouts that we have here are basically, there's a yellow version, an orange version, a blue version, a purple version, a brown version, and a black version. And that's easiest to hardest. And if you are an orange band and you are yellow in, let's say, upper body pull, you won't be able to do the orange workout if it's an upper body pull workout, even though you're orange, because you need the orange, let's say,
need to be at
criteria.
that standard.
Yeah, you need to have that strength in the upper body. You need to have that strength to body weight ratio. So what that will tell you to do is basically go and work on your upper body pull. You get better at it, and then you can progress it. And then once you progress it, that'll make you stronger in another area. So let's say if you get stronger in your upper body pull, your lactic tolerance will get better because there's an upper body pull element to that. And your own will get stronger because there's an upper body pull element to that. And all of the different levels like intertwine with each other and they all help each other. So like just because you're weak in one area, it doesn't mean you can't advance in other areas, but it will hold you back. So it forces you to address your weaknesses.
Yeah, as we said, one thing I think is very, very important about this is, before I kind of say what I say next, is obviously here, if you can't look, or if you're just listening, orange 2 to, let's say, purple 2. That's the ideal range that we've been focusing on. So if you've just been listening to keep, we haven't really addressed that. Orange 2 to purple 2, that's the ideal standard. Now, obviously you can go above or you can be below, as I said, no judgment. But the key thing is here, this is a judge, right? And so we don't expect anybody to be black or red or brown or purple, but realistically, one of the issues that we had when we introduced this first was everybody, well, not everybody, but an awful lot of people didn't like it. And they didn't like it because it's a judge.
Yeah.
And so this is objective, it's metrics, it's a standard.
And it was different as well.
Yeah, of course. But the big thing is like the people are like, oh, I don't want to be tested. I don't want to be tested. You don't want to be judged, even, or you don't want to judge yourself. And that's one of my favorite things about it. Not necessarily that it's a judge, but that it's something to work towards. It's, listen, what are you going to work towards? Like, what are you, like, if you're trying to move in a positive direction, you have some kind of aim, you have some ideal, some goal that's serving as a judge. I want to run 5K. Why? I can't run 5K. Well, you as somebody who can run 5K is serving as your ideal, and that ideal then is going to judge you. It's like, oh, well, you're not there yet. Oh, you're, and hopefully it's a kind judge. A judge doesn't have to be, super harsh and all this kind of stuff. It's like, hey, look, you're just not quite there yet. It's both a guide and a judge, and so you want to let it be both. You don't just want it to judge. No, you're not there. You're not good enough. It's like, hey, you're not there, but I'll tell you what, this one that's right here is completely doable. This one next to you is completely doable. It's okay to be wherever you're at. In my personal opinion, it's just not okay to stay somewhere that you're not happy with and to not be healthy and not be doing anything about it. If you're grinding at this, if you've been a white and you've been a white for the past 6 months and you're trying your damnedest to move in the right direction, it's like, well, that's going to move you across the spectrum of health. You're going to move from, a white who's completely, not healthy because, low bone density, weak muscles, poor cardiovascular health, poor coordination, risk of injuries outside the gym. Like, again, you're just not coordinated. Just you could trip and fall and break your arm, and that's going to leave you out, and then the muscle atrophy and joint pain, nerve pain, all that kind of fun stuff. You could be overweight, it's like all this kind of stuff but if you're working towards getting your yellow, it's like all that is going to have to improve in order for you to get that. And so having that standard and that metric, and to even start engaging with an idea of being competitive with yourself, it's like, listen, I got to beat that person who I was yesterday. I got to be better and better and better. It's like that, I believe, is a very, very good place to be in, given that you're doing it in a competitively kind way. It's like you're trying to push yourself, but you're not been too hard on yourself to the point where you're starting to get into negative self-talk. But we can get into the conversation about positive peer pressure.
Yeah, well, I think that's pretty cool here, especially when it comes to like a testing phase. Or one of the things that I like doing when I'm programming is I like to put in like group sections. So like let's say we're doing a deadlift, and me, you, and Peter are, was it black in deadlift or red in deadlift? Peter's red in deadlift.
Peter broke the scale, did you?
Like that. Let's see, I'm red in deadlift as well. But like we'd put, if we're in a group, we put all of us together, and if I'm deadlifting 200 and you're only deadlifting 190, like you'll feel like you're like, I should be up here with the lads. And it'll push you. We'll give you that little thing. Now you might feel a bit shitty about it if you pull the lowest in your group, but it will motivate you to get a little bit stronger as well.
That's the same stuff like this. It can both be intimidating and encouraging. It depends on your frame, and obviously it depends on the environment you're at. But I feel like the big thing is like, the conversation you're having with yourself. It's like, listen, I have to be realistic. Peter's pulling 220 kilo, I'm pulling 160 kilo. I'm not just going to try and pull the weight that Peter's pulling.
Why not?
But that's so I hurt myself. But again, I'll do my best to again always do your best, and it's nice because sometimes progress lives just right there on the edge. You know, I was talking to somebody.
Not sometimes, always. Always. Like progress, you always get progress when you're at the edge of your ability.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. Exactly. Yeah, for the most part. Sometimes it's, you know, doing what you're comfortable with, and maybe it's the consistency that's the hard part. You know, like because again, you
If
can't.
you want, we can get into a debate about or like progress. So and what the edge of your ability is, because I would say one of the main things people struggle with that is at the edge of your ability would be consistency.
Yeah, 100%. And this is it. I don't just mean intensity.
Yeah.
Not intensity overall, but you know,
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah. So
intensity obviously plays a big part.
a little bit there. Like intensity is one of those things where it's like it doesn't just mean go as hard as you can. Intensity is a variable that can be manipulated in loads of different ways. Like you can have endurance intensity, you can have like maximal output intensity, you could have a little bit of a mix of both. You could have a strength intensity, and you could have a flexibility intensity. Like I'm not sure about you, but if you hold the bottom of a squat and you're not very mobile for more than 2 minutes, it gets pretty intense. So
yeah, growth is generally going to challenge it.
Yeah,
and that's it is because your body doesn't really want to grow. Your mind might want to grow. Your mind.
So, I think it always challenges you. I think like growth always challenges.
That's a very good point. I retract my previous statement. Nah, sorry. No, don't be sorry. It's good. So obviously the foundations is your guide to leveling up and moving towards from zero to hero.
Sure, I just saw only there's I think I seen a short the other day where it was Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan was like only Sith deal in absolutes. I was like, it's absolutely this thing. I'm like, it's absolutely growth.
I think I might have said it to you ages ago.
Was it?
It's one of my favorite quotes. It's only the Sith deal in absolutes, and I think I remember seeing a quote then. I'm gonna
butcher
not even butcher. I can't even give context, but I remember it was like do or do not. There is only try. It was Yoda.
Yeah.
It's like, and it was like Yoda with a red lightsaber. It's like that's an absolute. Yoda, goddamn you! But yeah, and again, that's why it's like, you know, one of the biggest issues. Let's continue then the Star Wars path. You know, one of the big issues with, you know, people who have issues is dealing in absolutes. It's like this kind of all or nothing, and this is where, you know, Peter deadlifting 220 and somebody who's white. It's like, well, what is the gap in between? It's like, well, it is a spectrum. There's so much room in between A and B. It's like, and any step in the right direction. It's like it doesn't have to be, you know, I'm either unfit or fit. It's like, you know, it's a spectrum, and as we start moving across that spectrum, we start understanding, you know, how much wiggle room that there is and how much it's not just hot and cold. You know what I mean? And again, you could be fit like you were when you tested initially on the level method.
I got blue,
but not everywhere.
Yeah, well,
you know,
my overall score when I first started was blue, and as a PT, you know, like for this here, like that's like your, you know, like your someone who trains wherever, but it's not their whole life. Yeah. And as a PT, I was like kind of offended that I only got blue. I was expecting to be like purple or brown. But
I think I initially tested as purple.
Did you? You didn't. Like actually, maybe it was one of the things that held me back was my flexibility. And the coolest thing about it is that like that hurt my ego so much that my little brother got purple before I did. I was like, I should be getting that. And it was because of flexibility, something I struggled with forever. And I got like a yoga teacher training qualification. And I was like, I need to address this. And then it literally motivated. It was like, all right, well, that is my one goal now. I'm going to sort my flexibility out, and then everyone else carry through. And my squats got better because of it. My Olympic lifting got better because of it. Everyone just felt way easier.
Conversation I have with so many people who join new, they have loads of exercise experience. They might have been athletes like for years and years and years. And the conversation that they have with me consistently, and even the conversation they have with themselves, is like, I used to be fit. I used to be so fit. And that's one of the things that I loved about the level method was that it affirmed everything that I was doing. It was like, I was obviously doing the fighting fit training and all this kind of stuff, and should you be strength training? Should you be a little bit lifting? Am I flexible enough? Am I this? Am I that? Am I the other? You know, I haven't ran in ages, but it's like one of the cool things with all these athletes. It's like, listen, it's not what like fair enough. You're not as sharp as you could have been. You know, maybe 2 to 10 years ago, depending on your training. You know, you might have been blue, you might have been purple. It's like, but now, like you're sitting at the bottom of the orange tree. It's like you're not white. You know, you're not yellow. It's like you have so much still
there. We're ready.
There, exactly. Yeah, it's like the base level that you have trained for years and years and years is there. And not only that, like obviously with our experience, like I can tell somebody, hey, listen, it's going to be a month before you get your blue. Like it's not long at all. It's like, and then realistically, the real battle begins
when the purple.
We'll get you the purple. And it's like, but realistically, if you think that you've lost it, you know, you can reaffirm your confidence in your fitness with the level method by showing up and kind of saying, oh, well, look, this is actually where you're at. You're not, where are you? Oh, probably yellow now at this stage. No, listen, look, your running's up at brown, your kettlebells up there at purple, your front squats up at blue, your upper body pulls blue, your upper body push is blue. Like, what you have is your squat endurance is blue. What you have is a really, really solid base that you could do something with. And they're like, oh, great. And so that's a confidence builder right off the gate.
Yeah, and it also, like, when you first test it, you find out exactly where you're at. So there's no guessing. There's no like thing. Something that I notice a lot when um, dealing with the public or dealing with the average person is that they'll have like a bit of an ego, where like, oh, I can do this, I can do that, blah blah, and then like they'll go to test it and they'll come up short or whatever it is, and then that will motivate them as well to basically get back to where they were. Like, it was the thing, we've got a few clients here are part of the same family, they're brothers, and one of the things that they were saying before one of the brothers signed up was they were talking about push-ups and how many push-ups you can do. It's like, is that a push-up or is that a fight and fit push-up? And it's like, if me and you were doing a test, or it is, who's better at kettlebells? No, it's like, oh yeah. No, it's like, here's a test. Who's better at kettlebells? So let's do it. Like, and it makes it objective. And I think that competition is really cool too. But it lets you know exactly where you're at in all these different dimensions, and then it gives you a direction. Like, this here is called a map. This is the level method map, or the method of athletic progression, which is a cool acronym. But I think the map analogy stands to it, because this gives you a point. The foundations program tells you where you're at in it, and then the direction is up this way. So we're heading it that way. It's like, which one do you want to solve first? And usually, it's like, you want to address your weaknesses first, and then once you have that weakness solved, you feel better, more experienced as an athlete. So it's a really, really good place to start, because you find out where you're on the map, and then you can't really, if you don't know where you're at, you don't know where you're going, and if you don't know where you're going, well, then you're just going to be wandering in circles. And I think this gave us a lot of focus in terms of our training, and in terms of programming, and in terms of helping people. Helps us give them focus, and it helps us basically improve their lives in terms of their physicality, which is,
It also keeps things very novel. You know what I mean? Like, I was doing flexibility and Pilates for 2 years on repeat and nauseum, mainly just because I was injured. And then this came around. It was like, all of a sudden rings popped up, and I'd never considered rings before in my life. I was like, oh, and it was something really, really cool.
I kind of thought it was silly at the start as well. Rings. I was like, why do we need to go on rings?
There you go.
And it's like, because it's a cool gymnastics movement, and the benefits of going for rings is shoulder stability, all that sort of stuff. And then rings is one of my most, like, it's one of the areas that I've engaged with the most to progress.
Same.
Which is really, really cool. And it would have been something I would have completely ignored before. And low key was part of something that I would like kind of thought was really cool at the same time. Like, if you ever see gymnasts on the rings, like, it's absolutely insane. Like, one of the things we have to do here is a strict ring muscle up. Boom, right there for Brown 2. Like, that's really, really advanced in terms of just general CrossFit. No, what I was going to say, but in gymnastics, like, it's basic.
Pay to play.
Like, yeah, that's basic, like, stuff for it. So,
if you're talking Olympic level athletes, I mean,
not even Olympic level, just someone who's doing gymnastics.
Really?
Yeah, like, getting up on the rings is like wrap off your glove.
Strict ring muscle up.
Yeah, it should just be basic to you.
Wild.
Yeah,
absolutely wild. Yeah, for sure. And there's so many different areas like that, like Olympic lifting, hang power cleans, that kind of stuff is one that definitely frustrates an awful lot of clients.
Yes.
And
why?
Because they don't know what they're doing.
And why is that frustrating?
Because they want to be good at that.
And like, why do you think it annoys them so much?
Because there's a lot to it. An awful lot of people, for talk's sake, don't understand simple mechanics anyway. And so then starting to ask a high level skill of them is like, it really challenges their learning. It's like, okay, so now you have to understand. So I think Kelly might have called it maybe the hang power clean. That might only be a level 2 movement. So level 1 would be like one joint movement, or maybe 2, but it's like, one archetype, for example, a squat, or a hinge. Mm-hmm. And so one of the issues with hang power clean is that we're trying to move from one position into the other, and that's difficult. Like a burpee. Like, burpees also frustrate people. You have to move from one position into another. And obviously, yes, it's hard, but to be able to move from one to the other safely, and to not feel uncomfortable when you're doing it, it requires mobility. It requires coordination. It requires an understanding of your center of gravity and all this kind of stuff. And the Olympic lifting is like it's so technical. Like, I remember trying to learn it and still trying to learn it. It's a lot, and so to ask people to take that on is challenging.
Yeah, and I also think it makes them feel very, very silly. Well.
Yeah, true.
I think it's
especially triple extensions.
Yeah, it's one of the it is one of the most awkward things that you have to learn. Once you learn it and it clicks, and you can see a bit of progression, you can see yourself get better at it.
So you get a good bump and a good catch, like
yeah, and you got it, and then you watch it back, you can see like a really cool triple extension. It's very.
And then you watch that same lift back 2 years later, and you go,
yeah, oh my god, I have one where I was doing Olympic lifting, I think it was like 2017 or something like that there, and I was like so impressed. So it was 70 kilos. It was 70 kilos, and I got overhead, and I was like, this is dead. I got 70 kilos over my head, and like, now it's like I'll do like without warming up, without doing it, I'll just do 70 kilos like nothing, which is
I was doing one. I was looking back at myself like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I was like completely bent over and I pulled. And it's just, and I at the time I was like, oh my god, oh look at this, it looks class. Like it looks terrible, but this is the thing about it.
That's what happens when you get better at everything.
Exactly, this is it. That's what learning looks like, and so you will start cringing at your old stuff. I'm sure anybody's like, look at your hairstyle on your Facebook memory fucking 6 years ago. You're like, oh, I can't believe I wore bangs, or I can't believe I grew a mustache and whatnot. And so one of the cool things I really like about the foundations as well, like in terms of upper body push, like staying on the novelty train. It's like we move from push-ups, right? Cool. How many push-ups do you want to do? It's like we used to set goals, people 20 push-ups, 30 push-ups, 40 push-ups, 50 push-ups, 6. Like at what point you're like, right? Can we move on from push-ups now, please? It's like I can do push-ups, and so. And obviously, again, like, I mean, can you do 100 push-ups? Like, that would be fucking ridiculously impressive to be able to do 100 push-ups. But, to invert that and start, now we're working on overhead press, now we're working on handstand push-ups. And so, again, we start focusing on stuff. It's fun. Kettlebell swings. How many kettlebell swings do you do? Cool. Can you do single arms? Cool. Can you switch? Can you do a snatch? And so, again, stuff like that then starts to become very, very novel, and it keeps your training alive.
I agree.
Instead of just doing the same
thing. The novelty is actually a really cool aspect of it.
It really is. Like, there's 15 different categories there.
Yeah, and no two sessions are the same. And like the cool thing as well with this is that it will also highlight your strengths. Like when you do the foundations program, you come in, you'll also learn all the basic movements for exactly where you're at. And then when you're doing the sessions, you'll learn how to advance it. It'll be like when you do one of the sessions, let's say you're a yellow band and you're front squatting, and let's say you're a lad and you're front squatting 52.5 for 8. You've done it twice already. Coach will go over and basically like, form's really good, everyone's like nice and smooth. Step it up. You're going to go to 60 kilos. You need 5 reps to it. I want you to try and make it look exactly like you're 52.5. And then boom, they start banging that out. And then they've just leveled up there in the space of 3 weeks because they got more coordinated with their squat. It's not necessarily even like a strength thing, I would say. It's more a coordination thing. But I forget what I was saying.
Well, another thing that people really struggle with when they start is skipping. The skip is another one just on the same line of your coordination.
It's not what. It's neurological and core endurance is the category.
Yeah. So again, neurological and core as a big part of that is skipping. And so I know people who couldn't skip at all. If you're watching this, you remember, you know who you are. You couldn't do 4 skips, and now you can do 150 no problem. And the double unders then, it's like, oh, so you got good at single unders. So some people come in and they can just do singles. It's like, oh, congratulations. Let's start doing doubles. And then we start doing doubles. And I say, okay, can you do doubles? Yeah, I can do one. Can you land your double? Yes. Can you do doubles alternating with your singles so you can show that you can speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down? So we're starting to focus on rope control. Can you do them unbroken? Can you do them unbroken for high reps? Now can you do them unbroken for high reps with sit-ups in there on the same workout for time? And it scales in a very, very cool and novel way to the point where you see people who, again, like at one stage couldn't skip, then challenge themselves with something that when they went in, it was like they wouldn't have even considered it possible that they could do a double under, let alone do a very high standard double unders for time, or people who couldn't, do burpees. It's like, they're using a bench. It's like, no, they're doing it for the floor. Or pull-ups, push-ups are a massive one. Like pull-ups and push-ups.
No, I am so proud of the amount of clients that we have that can do full pull-ups now.
Yeah.
It's so good. And the ladies starting to come up as well and do their pull-ups too. It's very, very cool. Seeing it is frustrating, like trying to address weaknesses like over and over and over again, without actually making progress with it. One of the biggest obstacles that I would say is relative strength. So a lot of people when they first sign up, their goal is to lose body weight and or body fat. And one of the things that they'll get stuck with is like upper body pull or dips or push-ups or stuff that's to do relative strength rather than objective strength. Relative strength is strength body weight ratio, and absolute strength is basically just how strong you are. So someone who comes in and let's say they're 110 kilos, they're male, and they deadlift 180 kilos straight off the bat, like they're
Really off the floor.
yeah, real strong, making it look easy. There it is, but like they can't do one push-up, they can't do one pull-up because again they're so heavy. Like if they were, let's say, a normal weight for their height and all that sort of stuff.
Normal, healthy.
Healthy, yeah.
Because unhealthy is quite normal now. You know, overweight's quite normal.
That's fair. But they'd be able to do much chin-up because they're that strong. And then a lot of times as well, they probably could. They just don't have the coordination to do it, or they just don't know what the right answer is. And a lot of times when they do the foundations program, the amount of like light bulbs that go off and it's like, oh, this is how you're supposed to do it. And they go like, oh, I'm like this the whole time. Or the push-ups, like the amount of people, the amount of terrible push-ups that I see all the time. Like, I don't understand how people don't know how to do push-ups.
Listen.
But at the same time, I actually do because I used to.
Listen, I used to do terrible push-ups. I used to not have a bloody clue. That's kind of bringing me on to our next segment is like why we make people do the Fighting Fit program, starting with foundations. It's one-on-one. So obviously, what we try to do is sell all the benefits of a personal trainer at a fraction of cost. But what we have to do is we have to train with you one-on-one because the benefits of personal training. That's why we didn't just say, oh, we do group sessions. We frame it in a way that it's one-on-one trainer, personal trainer, because when you get a coach's attention one-on-one, that is the best case scenario. Now, with the level method and the system that we've set up, we've made it so the most expensive part of training with the personal trainer is their time one-on-one. So we try and now get all of the benefits. You do the same kind of training in a group for a fraction of the cost. Fantastic. But initially, an awful lot of people need that one-on-one attention. They need to be coached. They need to be cued and get a good understanding because how the hell is the lay person supposed to know about good shoulder mechanics, good hip mechanics? You know, it's like we study.
But it's even a big deal.
But it's even a big deal, exactly. Yeah. Why can't I have my elbows out? It's like I literally only knew 4 years ago, you know. And so it's like getting the one-on-one time with a person to obviously build a relationship, so that way they trust you and they can kind of get a feel for our vibe and our coaching, so we can assess them and make sure it's like, listen, you are, you know, moving in such a way that an injury is going to come up, or you're moving in such a way that your power is limited, and so this isn't scalable, and we start moving them into a very scalable way because this is all about, you know, growing at scale,
appropriate progression,
exactly. And so what we want to do is we want to take you in, we want to obviously not throw you into the deep end. You know, we want to do your swimming lessons before we start racing. And so that's kind of what the foundation is all about. We want to take you in, we want to, you know, at a slower speed than the classes. Instead of giving you a couple of cues, we'll give you 100 cues. It's like, we'll go this, we'll go this, we'll go slow. We'll make sure you have a good understanding. And for some people, we recommend that they don't move on to the classes yet. We recommend that, hey, look, you stay another wee while in the one-on-one sessions because you could really benefit and would get more from the program if you were to get that little bit more one-on-one time.
Yeah, but I think it's very, very rare that we recommend people to just continue with one-on-ones. It's rare. The reason we do that is because either they would let's say take too much attention away from the group session because maybe they lack coordination, lack stability, or you know, they're not confident in certain movements, and all they need to do is just learn all the fundamental movements to make sure that they have it down.
And why? Why do we do that? Because if you're in the group session and that is you could get hurt.
But on top of it, it would almost be a waste of time because the amount of time that they spend, you know, trying to get something right or even get set up or even know what different things are.
Exactly.
Especially with absolutely.
But my point being, why would it take away from other people? Because you would have to be on them. Because you couldn't just let them. As I said, most people just go into a gym and just tear away. It's like, no, it's like you literally can't do that. If you came to my class and had no idea what you're doing, it's like you are going to stick out like a sore thumb to me because you are like, I am going to need to now pour so much time into you because the place that I want you to be at is moving in a safe and sustainable way. And to obviously to your point, you know, to get to the point where you're going to get something out of the sessions, like that's literally all I'd want to do. Like I literally wouldn't want to train anybody else because I'm just so concerned about that one person. And so what we do is we instead of doing it during the class, we take people one-on-one. We spend, you know, what is it, 4.5 hours, 4 hours on average, you know, with each person per client. before they come in the foundations. And then on top of that, then we do your nutrition and goal setting consultation, which we set goals, make sure that you're...
It's like 6 hours to, or 45 minutes.
So what's that? 5.5 hours. So 5.5 hours near enough total time for your entire foundations package. And again, you'll have a great idea what you're doing. You'll have, my favorite part of the people coming in after foundations is like the fitness level from session 1 to session 5, and then session 1 of the Fighting Fit program being their 6 sessions, like that they're actually now fit. You know, they've been through the period where they've walked up the stairs with a limp. You know, they've struggled to sit on the toilet. You know, their kids jumped on their leg and they could barely tolerate it because the DOMs are that sort. It's like, and now hopefully you're out of that period before you start into group classes, so you start to feel that little bit of confidence. And you've had 2 weeks to just kind of, you know, do 2 sessions a week, do 3 sessions a week, or do 1 and then 2 and then another 2 over a 3-week period. It's like, that is how most people should start. You shouldn't start with 5 sessions, 5 and 10 sessions just straight off the bat. It's not a good idea. So guys, if you like that, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with your friends. You know the crack by now. We are on all the socials, so make sure you follow us. You can get me on Instagram, FF Movement Coach. You can get Chris on Instagram at
FF Chris.
And as I said, see you in the next one. Peace.